Hello friends! The last time I put out a call for questions for a Q&A video on Facebook, I got so many questions that I had to break up my answering into 3 parts. I shared part 1 already, and I'll post part 3 in a few days. The first question today is from Dewan. Dewan says, I have a question. I've been asked to shoot a Sweet 16. I have 4 camera bodies. Which should I use? I have a D3200, D7000, D80, and D40. And what should I look for in must-have shots of the event? The lenses I'll be using are 50mm 1.8, 35mm 1.8, 85mm 1.8, and Tamron 70-300 macro f4 to f5.6, as this will be my first paid gig. I have that problem too. I want to use all of my gear, so I have a hard time choosing amongst them for each event. It's not really a bad problem to have, I guess. Anyway, for an event where you'll be moving around and making quick changes, I would bring the 2 bodies that you are most comfortable with, plus maybe have one as a backup in the car. Then maybe use your 35mm on one and the 85mm on the other. That way you have a wider angle covered with the 35mm, but you'll also be able to shoot from farther away with the 85mm. Definitely check out the event location beforehand though. I'm assuming that your venue will be too dark to use the 70-300, and it's possible that it would give you too much reach, but I'd be equipped with a couple of options, especially if you can't visit the place beforehand. And don't be afraid to put one of the bodies away if you have trouble switching back and forth between them. Walking around with one body and a prime lens in a party situation, then maybe switching over to a different lens to capture some portraits would also be a really good solution if you aren't comfortable carrying 2 bodies at the same time. As for what photos to get, must-have photos, I would have to say blowing out the candles on the cake and maybe an entrance photo, but other than that, definitely talk to your clients and figure out what it is that they find the most important. I would imagine, you want to capture some of the details and, some of the people of the event, but really you're going to want to know what they think is important. Now, Eric says, here's a question that I wonder about. Why do camera manufacturers insist on putting video in still cameras? If I want video, I'll buy a video camera. Don't make me pay extra for what I'll never use. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just custom build our cameras? I think the trend towards putting more capability in your DSLR, though, whether it be video or anything else, is here to stay. Unless maybe you're talking about the Nikon DF, but you're still going to pay a premium for it, even though it doesn't do video. Next question is from Kevin. I've recently been using an iPhone app called Glam Squad. Curious on your thoughts of the app. To book a makeup/hair artist in a pinch in NYC, do you usually hire a hair and makeup artist for your shoots with models you bring in, or do you let them do it themselves? Also, when you model, do you prefer doing your own hair and makeup or having an artist come in? That app sounds awesome. When I do shoots, I almost always have the models do their own hair and makeup, though I do work with them on wardrobe. As for myself, I do my own, though I don't rule out having help in the future. An app that helps me get artists over to my studio or wherever I am with a few clicks of my phone would be awesome, and definitely I would use it. Adam wants to know, any resource recommendations for learning how to properly pose models? When working with an experienced model, I pretty much let them do their thing and offer little tweaks throughout. But when I have a new face, I run out of ideas within the first 10 minutes or so. When I'm working with someone new, I have examples ready. And if we get stuck, sometimes I just take a break and look back at some of the examples that I pulled. I do have e-lookbooks that offer ideas too. You can find them on my website and are free downloads for my VIPs. Often, looking at a pose in my lookbook or in a magazine can help you just get started again. And you know what else? There's actually a new book by an incredible model named Coco Rocha. The book is called Study of Pose, 1000 Poses. I want it so bad because she is absolutely a master of posing, and I'm really curious what the book looks like. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. Now for a question from Federico. What's your take on using image-based social network like Flickr, Instagram, and Pinterest to increase your reach as a pro photographer or aspiring one? Also, do you have any suggestions on using them? Well, I think it's awesome. Any way that you can get your work out there for people to see is beneficial. As for suggestions on using them, I guess I would say update often, but only with your best work. Give people something to come back to, but don't inundate them with all of the photos that like you took at your niece's soccer game last weekend. 1 or 2 maybe even 5, new photos from events or portrait sessions is so much easier to look through for a potential client than a whole slew of, your camera roll. The last question from the day is from Abdullah. Canon 7D Mark II or 6D for filmmaking and photography. This is interesting since one of the first questions I answered today was from someone who absolutely did not want video on his DSLR. Anyway, this answer would be different for different people. One body isn't inherently better than the other. These two cameras have different technical specifications and they appeal to different photographers. So it all depends on your photography, like your goals and your style. It depends on what you might already have in your collection and what your budget is. Like, do you already have a few lenses, and how much are you willing to spend on the system now and in going forward? Plus, it depends upon your motivation for the purchase. Like, is this your first DSLR, or are you adding it as a second body? And another important thing is the feel of the camera. Have you had each of them in your hands and tried out using the buttons and the dials? Which feels better or was easier to use? So my suggestion when looking at a purchase is this. The manufacturer websites have a compare function where you can look at many of the specifications of 2 or more bodies side by side. Look down the list. Check out the size of the body, the frame rate. Is there an onboard flash you might want? If video is important to you, look at that. Check out price and also consider how expensive lenses will be as well. If you're looking at, a full frame body, know that lenses will be more expensive. And you know what else? If you already have a camera and are looking to add to your collection, do you want to consider something that uses the same battery or the same lenses? Maybe something that has the same like button and dial configuration. And while you're looking through the specifications, think about how each one will actually affect your photography. Like, just because a body has a higher frame rate doesn't necessarily mean that it is better. Will that frame rate even help you in your photography? Maybe, but maybe not. So I realize that I didn't actually completely answer your question, Abdullah. If you take a look at specs and still aren't sure, shoot me an email. I can help you out more once I know more specifics about your situation. Okay, that's it for today, folks. I've still got more questions to answer, so I'll post part 3 of this Q&A soon. Check back here on my Facebook page or at snapchick.com to find out when it's ready.